What if I told you that all these amazing strength feats you're seeing on screen are not only down to muscle size and strength, but it's also essential the athlete builds up a good amount of tendon strength for these skills and exercises to even be possible? Let me explain. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn what exactly tendons are, how they'll help you increase your strength in whatever skill, sport, or exercise you're trying to do, how to train your tendons effectively and safely, and lastly, how you can fit this into your training program. So firstly, what exactly are tendons and what do they do? Tendons connect muscle to bones, allowing the force generated by muscles to be transmitted to bones, facilitating movement and strength. When a muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon, which in turn pulls on the bone, resulting in movement at the joint. You can think of a tendon as both a spring and elastic band put together. In some instances, the tendon will act as a spring, absorbing energy, and it will store it as elastic energy, which will propel you forward by the movement of the bones as facilitated by the muscles. So in plyometrics, you see the tendons of the ankles kind of acting as springs, but other times you can see the tendon acting as a rubber band, as when you put a force on it, it will stretch as the stress and strain makes it stretch out. But of course, the tendon or the rubber band is trying to resist this, and depending on whether that tendon or rubber band is thick or thin will determine whether it, stretches and strains the tendon or whether it will be able to pull back. Tendons are made out of collagen. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body, and it's even what the skin is comprised of. A fun fact is that if you look at your protein supplements like protein powder or maybe even a collagen supplement, if you have it, if it has these amino acids such as glycine, proline, hydroxyproline, or arginine, all of these are amino acids that help build up collagen. So collagen is just a big protein complex, okay? So these amino acids are gonna help build your collagen. So if you have a protein powder that has those amino acids in it, which it likely will, these will help build up your collagen and tendons. So taking that will also help build muscle, but also it will help your body get the building blocks it needs to build tendons. Okay, so now let's go back to the skills and exercises where it's really important you have a good amount of tendon strength for you to perform those skills, especially safely, so you don't rupture a tendon, cause any severe damage to yourself by doing a lot of these straight arm movements, or even if you're lifting very heavy, you're gonna put a lot of stress on your tendons. So you need to make sure you also train your tendons, not just your muscle, and you train these in different ways. But first, let's talk about what makes a strong tendon. What makes a tendon strong? Basically, what makes a tendon strong is a stiffer tendon. But why? So if we think of a tendon as a spring or a rubber band, a stiffer tendon is able to resist a force put on it to cause it to stretch more. So a stiffer tendon is harder to pull, therefore a stiffer tendon is able to resist greater tensile forces that are pulling on it and is able to undergo less stress with great amount of forces. So this means you're less likely to get, severe tears or damage to the tendon. If you had a very non-stiff tendon, think of this as a really, really thin rubber band. You could just pull on that thing, make it stretch, and it will just snap. That's not what we want for our tendons. There's two kind of characteristics for the tendons, like I said, is this ability to act as a spring and kind of let you bounce around in these plyometric moves when you're doing running, jogging, whatever it is, jumping, box jumps, whatever it is, the tendons are acting kind of like springs. But then there's other aspects of tendons where they're resisting stress put on them, so they're resisting the stretch. So there's those two components of the tendons. You can kind of think of it like that. So we want to train that component where it's resisting forces being put on it, so you have a very robust tendon. So from here on out in this video, if I say a tendon is stiff, don't see it as a negative thing like how we think of muscles or joints or just our body in general, where stiff is negative. For the tendons, stiffer is often stronger. So just think of it like that. Okay, so now we know a stiffer tendon, while also maintaining its elastic properties, is also a stronger tendon that can resist more tensile forces put on it before deforming. So that's what a stronger tendon is. But how do we train our tendons to become stiffer? So I kind of mentioned this before with collagen synthesis. What we're going to do is we're going to train it in a way that puts stress on a tendon. The same way we want to stress our muscles out to cause micro tears, which stimulates muscle protein synthesis, we want to do the same with tendons. We want to put a little bit of stress on them, not too much, not too little, just the right amount of stress that causes micro tears, stimulates collagen synthesis, the body builds up the tendon stronger and thicker, and stiffer, which means a stronger tendon and means you can do more and it can handle more load the next time. You put a little bit more stress on it over a longer period of time, and over this period of time, you're gonna get a big, strong tendon that can resist quite a good amount of force for whatever activity it is you want it to do. So now we know what tendons are, what they're made from, how to get them stronger, and what a strong tendon is. Now let's explain how to train your tendon safely, so that it can handle more load and you can do your calisthenics skills and gymnastics skills with much less pain, discomfort, and also a much lower risk of injury. And don't forget, this will also help the strength of your skills. So here are the protocols you want to follow. There's two of them. There's a static protocol and the dynamic protocol. The static protocol is basically isometrics. In all these studies, they found that isometrics was really good at training the tendon and getting tendon stiffness to increase over a long period of time. And also it helps to alleviate pain if you're experiencing tendinitis. But stay to the end because I have a different protocol if you're experiencing tendinitis. But the static protocol is going to be good, and you can add in and switch it up with a bit of dynamic exercising. So this is going to be eccentrics. So heavy loaded eccentrics. This is going to be good for increasing function of the tendon that they've also found in these studies. So that's also another option if you want to switch it up. But if you want to keep it specific to calisthenics, you know, stick with mostly the isometrics, and then also you can add in a few dynamic eccentrics as well. For the static or isometrics, you want to hold for 30 seconds, rest 90 seconds, and then repeat this 3 times. That'll take you about 5 minutes, and it's going to be a really good way to start training your tendon strength. Now for the dynamic exercises I'm about to show you, you're going to pick a weight or a progression that you can do for 10 reps. Then you're going to increase the difficulty either by getting a heavier weight or making the exercise harder until you can do 5 reps, and then increase back to 10. Once you get to 10, you're going to make it harder again, and then work back up to 10, make it harder again, and then repeat that cycle. Okay, so considering that we're calisthenics channel focused on planche, we're going to focus on these tendons because these are some of the most important when you're training the planche. So that's going to be the distal biceps tendon, the proximal biceps tendon, the distal triceps tendon, and the pec tendon, especially if you're doing iron cross. And we just want to isolate one thing, which is our one tendon and muscle unit. So for this, it's the bicep. What you're going to do is you're going to grab the weight and hold a supinated isometric hold. And again, follow the protocol, hold it for 30 seconds, and then allow your arm to relax for 90 seconds and repeat this. You're going to hold this in a bent arm position, but not maximally contracted and not all the way relaxed, because we know that the middle of this movement is where the muscle is the strongest. You're going to get the best sort of strongest contraction there. So your muscle is going to be safe, and then you can put all the stress on the tendon for the 30 seconds. Remember, Goldilocks method. Do the right amount of weight, not too much, not too little. Now for you calisthenics guys that are not using weight, you're just gonna do the body weight version of this, which is a body weight bicep curl. So you're gonna grab a bar and invert yourself like an Australian pull-up, and then curl your body weight with your arms. So do this. You can also put a weight on your chest if it's not enough, but remember, when we're training tendons, we want a high amount of load because we want to stress that tendon out a little bit, and tendons are quite resilient because they're already generally stiff, but we want them to stretch a little bit. That's how we're going to cause those micro tears that stimulate collagen synthesis. So make sure that this is enough load and that you're holding for 30 seconds and it's still quite difficult. We want about an 80% muscle contraction. So you're contracting quite hard the muscle so that you know that you're stretching that tendon and trying to get those micro tears to stimulate the collagen synthesis. So that's why I'm saying weight is going to be better. But if you don't have weights, you still want to train your tendons, do this body weight bicep curl variation, and then try and add some weight to your chest, whether it's a backpack or whatever, do that. Okay, the next bicep tendon is the proximal biceps tendon, which attaches up here towards the shoulder at the top of the humerus. So we're going to train this using a classic calisthenics skill or exercise that a lot of you guys would have done, which is a Zanetti press or isometric hold. So remember, you can do these either static or dynamic. I recommend starting off with just static, and then as you get more advanced, do them eccentric, and especially, you know, if you have tendinitis, then isometric is going to help a lot. And the shoulders are probably going to be contracted as well. Again, you're going for a decently heavy weight where you're getting like an 80% muscle contraction, because that's really going to stress the tendons out, which is going to stimulate the collagen synthesis that we want. This will target the distal biceps as well, but it will also target that proximal bicep, and of course you'll get, you know, benefits of both. So this is a good exercise generally for planche and training your tendons specifically. The other body weight option, if you don't have weight available to you, is honestly a supinated planche lean. This is a really good exercise at targeting the biceps tendons, both distal and proximal. Just make sure that your technique is correct, because again, there's a lot more to think about here, because you're thinking about protracting and stuff, because you want to do this with good form. You're thinking about keeping your arms straight and locking out. You're thinking about your hip position and your core. So again, weights is going to be easier, but if you don't have weights, this one is really good and has sorted out a lot of the people I trained. It has straightened out their straight arm strength, and it's trained them towards the planche. So this is a really good one if your goal is also the planche and you want to strengthen your tendons over a long period of time. So the next tendon we're going to train now is the tricep tendon. Again, we use this a lot in a lot of calisthenics movements, in bodyweight dips, in planche movements, supinated planche push-ups. A lot of skills, handstand push-ups, put stress on the triceps tendon, and if you've got a high volume of pushing movements, it's likely that that tendon is going to get stressed out. So to add in some prehab for that tendon and make sure that tendon is getting stronger as you get more advanced in your calisthenics skills and those progressions get harder and less advantageous for the tendon, we need to make that tendon stronger. So the first way we're going to train this tendon with either weights or equipment is going to be using a resistance band. So we're going to do a banded tricep extension isometric. Again, not all the way relaxed, not all the way contracted in the straight arm, but right in the middle. We're going to hold there with a heavy band. Again, we want a good strong muscle contraction so that the tendon starts stretching, we get those micro tears, and it's just enough to start building and stimulating collagen synthesis, and we start building that tendon. So we're going to grab a band, do that tricep extension, and hold midway through. Again, we can do this with weights, but we're going to have to do it overhead, lying down on a bench in a skull crusher kind of position. And this is going to put more stress on the tendon because that muscle of the triceps is going to be stretched overhead. So that's going to put more stress on the tricep because your muscle is also sort of lengthened and it's contracting, which is going to put more stress on the triceps tendon. So this is a little bit more advanced. So I would say if you're just starting out, obviously you don't have any tendinitis or anything, then start with the banded method, or obviously you can use a cable system as well. Hold that, and if that gets easy, then try the skull crusher variation with heavy loaded weight. Hold the isometric, and again, of course, you can do this in a dynamic, eccentric fashion for both these exercises as well. Just follow the protocol for the seconds and the weights so you know what reps and sets to do. And for you guys, again, that are just doing bodyweight exercises but want to train your tendons, again, the Sphinx push-up is a great one. So holding the bottom of a Sphinx push-up and leaning forward, so it's like a Sphinx push-up lean on the floor. This one is really good for stretching and stressing out your tendons. So again, you're going to get on the floor in that plank position, lean forward with the bent arms, forearms on the floor, apply just a good amount of stress to the tendons. Again, 3 out of 10 or less pain. This might feel a little bit uncomfortable because you are putting some strain on the tendons, which we want to do to get stronger tendons. Hold that for 30 seconds and obviously the 90 seconds rest. Repeat that 3 times. And of course, you can do this in an eccentric fashion, trying to do it weighted with a backpack if you need to. And the last tendon I'm going to give you an exercise for is going to be the pec tendon, because I know a lot of people want to train the iron cross, and we've already handled some of the tendons around the elbow. So let's handle another one that a lot of people have had issues with. I even had a friend that tore a pec tendon training iron cross. So make sure you train this tendon because it's very important for the iron cross. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Bulgarian dips, but again, an isometric or an eccentric. Start off with the isometric and work your way up to that eccentric. Again, Goldilocks, not too little, not too much. You guys know all these rules by now. Hold that position in the Bulgarian dip and then hold it for the protocol time. And if doing this body weight is easy for the 30 seconds, then of course, add a weight belt, add some weight to it, do the eccentrics as well, do the isometrics with a little bit of weight. This will still stress out the tendon a little bit more. You get a good stretch there in the pec, you'll definitely feel it, and it'll stimulate that collagen synthesis to start building up that pec tendon. Okay, so firstly, I'm gonna give you some rules to follow. It's very important you follow these rules because of course, when we're training our tendons, we're putting stress on them, more stress than they're probably used to. So this can be very dangerous if you don't do it in the right way. So make sure you follow these rules. If you had a previous tendon injury or pain, especially especially if it's recent, make sure you take a much slower and more careful approach. So make sure you take much more care if you've had recent tendon pain, because somewhere that has been irritated or damaged is more prone to being further damaged or further irritated. So be very careful. Rule number 2, build up to higher loads and greater weights over a long period of time. So as you'll see coming up, we'll show you the approach of what to do when you're just starting out and as you get more advanced with tendon training. But make sure you do all of these things over a long period of time, because as you can see here in this chart, the tendons take a much longer time to repair themselves compared to something like muscles. This is because of the reduced blood supply to the tendons and other connective tissue. You can see in this paper that they found out that during exercise, and this is during exercise when blood flow to the tendons is probably near the maximum it can kind of get in our normal day-to-day sort of activities, it only goes up to about 20% of its max. So at rest, when we're not exercising, blood supply to the tendons is even less than 20% of the max blood supply to the tendons. Hopefully that made sense, but basically you get very, very little blood supply to the tendons. So when you're doing very low intensity things where your heart rate isn't going up, you're gonna get very little blood going to that tendon. So especially when you're sleeping, which is when a lot of recovery occurs, you're not gonna get a lot of blood going to the tendons, which is why you need to take this so slow. So when you're deciding what load to use, think Goldilocks. Not too little, not too much, right in the middle in a sweet spot for over a long period of time. Keep pain and discomfort to a 3 out of 10 or lower. And the last rule, make sure that 24 hours after your tendon training, you're not experiencing any pain in that area. Okay, so some of you would have clicked on this video and would have experienced in the past or now or in the future will experience tendinitis or some form of tendinopathy. All that is some kind of tendon pain or degradation, okay? So what are you gonna do when that happens, or if you're experiencing now, what do you do? I'm gonna tell you right now. Number 1, first follow all the rules I mentioned earlier about doing it slow, not too much load. Follow all those rules. Those still apply to you. Next thing you wanna do is massage the muscle, not the tendon, massage the muscle. Don't do this by stretching them, do this by massaging, rolling out, massage gun, that kind of thing. And of course, with all of these kinds of injuries, go and see your medical professional to get real medical advice to handle your injury properly. Don't just look at YouTube videos. So one thing you can do if you're in that stage where the pain is really high, you're in that acute stage of the injury where it's really just happened, it's very aggravated and irritated, what you can do is apply some ice. That's gonna help the inflammation go down. But again, this isn't gonna be the best for recovery because that blood supply is already very low, but this will help with the pain, okay? Next, you're gonna do the same method. Isometrics first is going to help reduce pain, as you saw in some of the studies. You're going to do this using very light isometrics though, so no weight. You're going to do probably most of these body weight using a wall, and you're just going to hold either bent arm for the triceps or, you know, the other way for the biceps. Lastly, once the pain starts going away, it's been a couple weeks, maybe 2 or so weeks, you're going to start adding in eccentrics. Then once that's down, you can go back to your concentric exercises because you do want to get back to training, and the only way to get back to training is to start getting that tendon used to the stress again slowly over time. So give it some time, do it slow, but obviously at some point you need to go back to those exercises that you want to do for your training. And now you know how to train your tendons. If you want any extra help from me and want me to make you a calisthenics program, check out the link in the description and join the CaliQuest community. This is my online calisthenics community where I can make you a personalized program with tendon conditioning if you want it. So check that link down below. I'm also making planche programs, whatever you want, and we have some people in there already getting some help. So join up if you want some extra help from me. And if you haven't already, then watch this video because I'm going to show you how you can easily learn the planche in 2024 with this method.